He asked for her phone password just to feel safe. Then she realized what he really wanted. The first time Marcus asked Emily for her phone password, he didn't sound angry. That was the scary part. He didn't yell, he didn't accuse her, he didn't call her names. He just looked at her across the kitchen table, calm as ever, and said, "I just think couples shouldn't have secrets." And Emily froze, because the sentence sounded reasonable. That's how control usually enters a relationship, not through a locked door, through something that sounds like love. Marcus and Emily had been together for almost 3 years. From the outside, they looked stable. They had the apartment, the weekend routines, the shared Netflix account, the little jokes nobody else understood. People called them solid. But relationships don't usually collapse in public. They collapse in tiny private moments that nobody sees. A delayed text, a changed tone, a phone turned face down, a smile at a message that wasn't explained. And once fear enters the room, even silence starts looking guilty. Emily wasn't cheating on Marcus, but she had changed. She had started working later. She was more private with her phone, not because she had another man, not because she was living some secret double life. She was just tired of explaining every mood, tired of being emotionally audited every time she seemed quiet. Marcus noticed the change immediately. At first, he told himself he was just being observant. Then he told himself he was protecting the relationship. Then he told himself he had a right to know. That's the dangerous evolution of insecurity. It starts as pain, then disguises itself as logic. One night, Emily was sitting on the couch, texting her younger sister about their mother's medical appointment. Marcus walked in and saw her lock the screen quickly. It wasn't suspicious to her. It was automatic. But to him, it looked like betrayal. He stood there for a second, watching her like he had just caught a stranger wearing his girlfriend's face. "Who was that?" he asked. "My sister." "Why'd you lock it so fast?" Emily blinked. "I don't know. I just did." And that answer made him feel worse, because anxious people don't want simple answers. They want answers that destroy the fear completely, but no answer can do that when the fear is already feeding itself. For the next few days, Marcus became unusually sweet. Flowers on Wednesday. Coffee brought to her desk. Long hugs from behind while she cooked. Emily thought maybe things were getting better. But sometimes affection isn't peace. Sometimes it's surveillance with softer hands. He was watching how she reacted, watching whether she seemed guilty, watching if she smiled too much at her phone, watching if she placed it screen down or screen up. And that's when love starts to rot. Not when two people fight. When one person starts collecting evidence in silence. The phone password conversation happened on a Sunday night. They had just finished dinner. Rain tapped against the windows. Emily was loading the dishwasher when Marcus said, "Can I ask you something without you getting defensive?" That sentence already made her body tense. Because people who say that usually aren't asking a question. They're preparing an accusation. She turned around slowly. "Okay." Marcus leaned against the counter. "I think we should know each other's passwords, our phones, social media, everything." She laughed once, but not because it was funny. It was the kind of laugh your body makes when it needs one extra second to understand the danger. "Why?" Marcus shrugged. "Because if there's nothing to hide, it shouldn't matter." There it was. The sentence that sounds logical until you realize what it really means. It doesn't mean, "I trust you." It means, "I need access to feel safe." And those are completely different relationships. Emily dried her hands on a towel. "Marcus, I don't have anything to hide, but I don't want to live like that." His face changed, not dramatically, just enough. "So, you won't give it to me?" "That's not what I said." "That's exactly what you said." And suddenly they weren't talking about a password anymore. They were talking about power. Because in insecure relationships, the surface argument is almost never the real argument. The phone isn't the phone. The password isn't the password. It's the symbol. To Marcus, the password meant safety, proof, control over the unknown. To Emily, it meant losing the last private room inside her own life. And here's something people don't like admitting. You can love someone deeply and still need a space inside yourself that belongs only to them. Not because you're betraying them, because you're still a person. Marcus didn't understand that. Or maybe he did. But his fear was louder. Over the next week, he became colder. Not openly cruel, just emotionally withdrawn enough to punish her without admitting he was punishing her. Short replies, quiet dinners. Sleeping turned away from her. When she asked what was wrong, he said, "Nothing." But nothing is one of the loudest words in a relationship when it comes from someone who wants you to feel guilty. Emily started giving in without realizing it. She began explaining where she was going before he asked. She left her phone out on the table more often. She angled the screen toward him when texting. Not because he demanded it, because she wanted the tension to stop, and that's how emotional control works best. The controlling person doesn't always have to keep asking. Eventually, you start managing their anxiety for them. One Friday night, they went to a birthday dinner for one of Emily's coworkers. His name was Ethan. He was funny, confident, harmless. The kind of guy who made everyone at the table laugh because he knew how to tell stories. Emily laughed too. Marcus noticed. Of course he noticed. On the drive home, he was silent. Emily looked over. "You're doing it again." "Doing what?" "Going quiet instead of talking." He kept his eyes on the road. "You seemed like you had fun." "I did. It was a birthday dinner. With Ethan." She exhaled. "Oh my God." "What?" "You're jealous because I laughed?" "I'm not jealous." But his voice had that tightness people get when they're trying to sound calm while their ego is bleeding. Emily looked out the window, and for the first time, she felt something worse than anger. She felt tired. That kind of tired is dangerous, because when someone is angry, they still care enough to fight. But when they're tired, they start imagining peace without you. That night, Marcus waited until she fell asleep. Her phone was charging on the nightstand. He told himself he wouldn't look. Then he told himself he would only check one thing. Then he told himself she had forced him into this position by being secretive. That's how people justify crossing lines. They don't call it betrayal, they call it necessity. He picked up the phone. Face ID didn't work because she was turned away. So he tried her birthday. Wrong. Their anniversary. Wrong. Her mother's birthday. Wrong. With every failed attempt, he felt more humiliated. Not because the phone was locked, because the locked phone made him feel powerless. And insecure people often confuse powerlessness with disrespect. The next morning, Emily saw the notification. Face ID required to enable passcode. She knew instantly. There are moments in relationships where nobody has to confess. The truth just sits there in the room, breathing. She walked into the kitchen holding the phone. "Did you try to get into this last night?" Marcus was making coffee. He didn't turn around. "No." That lie was small, but small lies become huge when they are used to cover control. Emily said nothing. He turned around and saw her face. Then he sighed, like she was the problem. "Okay, yes, I tried. But only because you've been acting weird." Emily stared at him. "You tried to break into my phone while I was asleep. Don't make it sound creepy." "It is creepy." "No, creepy is hiding things from the person you claim to love." And there it was again. The manipulation hidden inside morality. He wasn't saying, "I'm scared." He was saying, "My fear gives me permission." That's the moment Emily saw the relationship clearly. Not because Marcus was a monster. That would have been easier. He wasn't a monster. He was wounded, insecure, afraid of being betrayed. But fear doesn't become harmless just because it has a sad backstory. A person can be hurt and still hurt you. A person can love you and still try to control you. A person can be terrified of abandonment and still create the exact conditions that make people leave. For the next 2 weeks, Emily pulled away. Not dramatically. She didn't block him. She didn't scream. She didn't pack a bag. She just stopped offering parts of herself. Stopped telling him funny little stories from work. Stopped sharing random thoughts. Stopped asking him to sit with her on the balcony at night. Her body was still in the apartment, but emotionally, she had begun moving out. Marcus felt it, and his fear got worse. One night, he said, "You're punishing me." Emily looked up from her laptop. "No, I'm protecting myself." "From me?" She didn't answer immediately. That silence broke something in him. "Wow," he said, laughing bitterly. "So, now I'm the villain because I wanted honesty." Emily closed the laptop. "No, Marcus, you didn't want honesty. You wanted access." He stared at her. She continued, calmer than he expected. Honesty is when you ask me a question and trust me enough to hear the answer. Access is when you don't trust me, so you want to search me. That sentence hit him harder than she intended, because deep down, he knew it was true. But knowing the truth and being able to tolerate it are two different things. He sat down across from her. His eyes were red now, but not from anger. "You don't understand what it feels like," he said quietly. "To love someone and feel like they could betray you at any second." Emily softened, because that was the first honest thing he had said in weeks. "I do understand," she said, "but I can't spend my life proving I'm not someone from your past." And that was the real wound. It was never about Ethan, or her sister, or the coworker dinner, or the locked phone. It was about Marcus's ex from 5 years ago, the one who cheated while telling him he was paranoid, the one who made him apologize for instincts that turned out to be correct. After that, Marcus never fully trusted calm. He never trusted privacy. He never trusted nothing. Because once someone uses your trust against you, your brain starts treating trust like stupidity. That's how betrayal changes people. It doesn't just hurt them, it rewires what safety feels like. But Emily couldn't heal him by surrendering her privacy. That's the trap so many couples fall into. One person says, "Give me access so I can feel safe." The other person gives access, and for a moment, everything calms down. But the calm doesn't last, because the phone was never the real problem. The fear was, and fear always gets hungry again. A few days later, Marcus finally got what he wanted, not because Emily wanted to give it, because she was exhausted. She placed her phone on the table and said, "Here, password is 4829. Look through it." Marcus stared at the phone. For weeks he had imagined this moment would bring relief, but it didn't. Instead, he felt ashamed, because the phone sitting there unlocked didn't feel like victory. It felt like proof that he had forced love to kneel. Still, he picked it up. He checked her messages, her Instagram, her photos, her deleted photos, her email, her notes app, nothing. No affair, no secret man, no betrayal. Just grocery lists, work stress, text with her sister, screenshots of furniture she wanted for their apartment, and a note titled, "Things to Talk to Marcus About," filled with sentences she had been too scared to say out loud. That one hurt, because the truth wasn't that Emily had been hiding another relationship. She had been hiding her loneliness inside this one. Marcus put the phone down. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Emily nodded, but something about her face didn't change, and that scared him more than anger would have. Because an apology can repair a mistake, but it can't always revive the version of someone who existed before they stopped feeling safe with you. That night, they lay in bed beside each other like strangers pretending not to be strangers. Marcus wanted to touch her, but he didn't. Emily wanted to cry, but she didn't. There are breakups that happen before anyone leaves, silent breakups, invisible breakups. The relationship continues physically, but emotionally, one person has already stopped reaching. 2 weeks later, Emily moved out. No dramatic speech, no screaming, no cruel final words. Just 2 suitcases by the door and a quiet look on her face. Marcus stood in the hallway, stunned. "So that's it?" he asked. Emily looked at him for a long moment. "I loved you," she said. "But I started feeling like I was on trial every day." His eyes filled. "I found nothing," he said. "I know." "Then why are you leaving?" And her answer destroyed him. "Because you found nothing, and I realized nothing would ever be enough." That's the part people miss about trust. Trust isn't proven by giving someone your password. Trust is proven by what they do when they don't have it. Anyone can feel calm after searching your phone. That isn't trust. That's relief after control. Real trust is harder. Real trust is sitting with uncertainty without turning the person you love into a suspect. Of course, some people lie. Some people cheat. Some people use privacy as a hiding place for betrayal. Nobody should ignore obvious patterns or abandon their instincts just to look mature. But there's another truth people don't want to face. Sometimes your partner's phone isn't hiding the relationship's biggest threat. Sometimes the biggest threat is the part of you that believes love can only survive under surveillance. Because once you start checking, you rarely stop at checking. You start watching, then testing, then interpreting, then accusing. And eventually, even innocent people become exhausted from defending themselves against crimes they never committed. Marcus learned that too late. Months later, he still thought about that unlocked phone on the table, how badly he had wanted access, how empty he felt once he got it. Because the password didn't save the relationship. It exposed what was already broken. The real question was never what is she hiding. The real question was, why do I need to search someone to feel loved by them? And that question is much harder to answer. So here's the uncomfortable truth. Love is not when someone gives you unlimited access to their private world. Love is when someone chooses you freely, and you don't punish them for still being their own person. Because the moment love becomes investigation, intimacy starts dying. Quietly, slowly, and usually by the time someone finally says, "I'm leaving," they didn't leave that day. They left in all the moments they were treated like a suspect instead of a partner. So, be honest. In a serious relationship, should phone passwords be shared, or does asking for the password already prove that trust is gone?